This year, Erev Pesach falls out on Shabbos, something that's very not common. Though the last time it happened was 4 years ago, the next time it's going to happen is in 20 years. Tough, hey, 2045. The Iker, the discussion, the Shiurim, the Kontresim, the Svarim that are being put out, the Chidushim, Shiurim that are being discussed, is about the practical halachas. Going through, with Hashem's help, we're having a series of Shiurim in the Kollel, a lot to speak about. Sreifas Chametz, Bir Chametz, the Sudas, Kiddush V'Makom Suda. I would like to focus tonight's Shiur on a whole nother chelik that likely you might not even come across. The chelik of Korban Pesach and Korban Chagiga. The halacha is that the Korban Pesach, you bring Yud Dalit, even if it's Shabbos, even on Shabbos. The Korban Chagiga is not Doiche Shabbos. So first of all, we should go through the halachas. We should be zoicha to the binyan Bais Hamikdash, and I'll be negeya for this year to know Korban Pesach is doicha, Korban Chagiga is not doicha. And as we'll see behemshach of the shiur, that these negeya the halachas, even bezman hazeh, that there's no Bais Hamikdash. Let's start with Korban Pesach, and then we'll continue on to Korban Chagiga. The Korban Pesach is doicha Shabbos. The Gemara brings a pasuk, a drasha, Vayasu b'nei Yisrael as a Pesach b'moyadoi. So the Gemara says, the Gemara Pesachim ayin Zayin Amud Aleph, b'moyadoi v'afilu b'Shabbos. You bring the Korban Pesach, it's doicha Shabbos. You bring the Yudal, it's doicha Shabbos. However, it's not just an open ticket that you bring the Korban Pesach and everything is doicha Shabbos. It's only what you b'dafka need to do b'yudalit. The etzem, like the concept of milas doicha Shabbos, but only what you need to do on Shabbos. The Korban Pesach, only what you need to do on Shabbos. Like the Mishnah lists out, the Mishnah Samach Heyom at Bais, the Mishnah goes through what is needed. Shchita is doicha Shabbos. This year, Erev Pesach, the Korban Pesach is brought with the shchita on Shabbos. Zrika, discussion in Taisus, what exactly is the Chil Shabbos with Zrika? Zrika's doicha Shabbos. Tzli, for an example, which would be a tchi of Shabbos, but it's not doicha Shabbos because you could do tzli leil Pesach. You don't have to do it Erev Pesach on Erev Pesach. These other chilukim also. These are gewaldige kuntras that came out about the Shchitas Korban Pesach, moiridik. So he brings one of the things that on Erev Pesach, after the Shchitas Korban Pesach, Klal Yisrael, they went home, they went to their houses. Lamaisa here, to bring home your Korban Pesach, if there was no Erev, you had to stay put till Yom Tov to bring home the Korban Pesach. And the emes is to see the chilukim. There's a minig by Klal Yisrael brought in the Mishnah Berurah to say between Mincha and Ma'ariv, Leil Pesach, the SEDER Korban Pesach, these different Nuschayos, these the Yavits, these the Goyin, these others. And if you take a look in the Nusach of you see how the Shchitas Korban Pesach went about, these different, not a Shinya Nusach for Shabbos, but it says the Shabbos there was changes. Why no Shchita Pesach by night? Why do you have to dafka do an Erev Pesach? Why can't you do the Shchita Leil Pesach? So Rashi brings a pasuk, a general pasuk by all kachim, b'yom tzavoisa. Yeah, very good. To say general b'yom tzavoisa only b'yom. So the shaila is, what do you have to have? Go to the general kachim digedin that a korban is only b'yom, shchit is only b'yom. Paper clay. The pasuk says in Parshas Boy, v'shachtu oisi kol kahal adas Yisrael bein arboim. The Torah says clearly in Parshas Boy, when you bring the Korban Pesach, you have to bring it Yud Daled Erev Pesach Bein Araboim. So that's why you can't shech the Balayla. Zok the Shagas Arya, that Enochanami Taka Shchita wasn't the Havamina. What's the Havamina? The Havamina is Zerika. And as we mentioned, you have to mevar klo. What's the chil Shabbos that you need that it should be doicha? But frek the shagar sari weiter that for Zerika also you don't need a general pasuk of Hilchas Kachim. Why not? Because the pasuk in Parshas Ba'aloischa v'yasu b'nei Yisrael as a pasuk b'mayadoi. The pasuk says Bar ba'asa yoyim b'chodesh hazeh bein harbayim. The pasuk says v'yasu. Doesn't say shtafke shchita. Avada, doing the korban pesach. What does it mean? V'yasu means also zrika. So why does Rashi say, you know why you can't do zrika leil haseder? You have to do an erev pesach. It's doiche Shabbos. Why? From the pasuk, the general pasuk, b'yoyim tzavoisai. Tepak lei, the pasuk in Bahaloischa, mehilchas korban pesach. Mehilchas korban pesach, you have to do it erev pesach. Zokt Rabbi Nachum Zemba, to answer this kasha, I want a bit quick till now, but even if you missed it, we're going to get now to Erev Pesach Matzos. That's Negeya this year. It's Negeya every year, but it's Negeya this year. Zokt Rabbi Nachum Zemba, that Hayoisti is yesoid by Kachim, Halayla Hoylach Acher Hayoim, and Memela, Be'etzem Mehilchas Kachim, you would be able to do the Zrika the next night. It's part of the day. It's part of the day. So Mehilchas Kachim Be'etzem B'Yesoida, you would be able to do the Zrika Pesach by night. These are Bazunder Gzeres HaKasa B'Yoim Tzavoise B'Yoim Dafka B'Yoim. So Atkan we said Klor Shchita and Zrika have to be Dafka by day. But we said be'etzem by kacham alayla hoylach achayoyim b'yesoida you would be able to at least do zrika by night mehilchas korban pesach. Good. What are you saying over there? You're learning kacham, no, in Tinek? It's takiv mamash kayoyim. Zokt Rabbi Nachum Zemba. Let's take a look now at Erev Pesach Matzos. Yep, Erev Pesach Matzos. It's not a Hasidish thing, the Shulchan Aruch. It's a siman in Shulchan Aruch to make Erev Pesach Matzos. If you don't do it, that's your minig. But it's a din in Shulchan Aruch to make Erev Pesach Matzos. When do you make the Erev Pesach Matzos? In the afternoon. That's why it's even more expensive. It's very limited. You can only make the Erev Pesach Matzos only starting in the afternoon. Why only in the afternoon? Because Erev Pesach Matzos is a zeicher to the Shchitas Korban Pesach. The Shchitas Korban Pesach was brought Erev Pesach in the afternoon. And Memela, the matzah that we make Erev Pesach is bedoime to the Shchitas Korban Pesach. So that's in a regular year, you make Erev Pesach Matzos, Erev Pesach in the afternoon. What's about this year? This year, Erev Pesach is Shabbos. We're not making Erev Pesach matzahs on Erev Pesach. We're not making Erev Pesach matzahs. So when do you make the Erev Pesach matzahs?
I thought we were going to save on it and I could buy a new bike. I thought this year, that's it.
I hear. It could be taka. I didn't go through it enough yet. It could be taka for this year taka. There are those that even though they do a year like this year, they don't. But the minig by many is actually to make the Erev Pesach matzahs Erev Shabbos. What's Erev Shabbos? Erev Shabbos is not Erev Pesach, it's the day before. What's the mile of Erev Shabbos? What?
You don't shech the korban pesach?
On Erev Shabbos. Oh, very good. So what's the mile of making an Erev Shabbos? Zeicher, lezecher. So Lamaisa, the emes is, the Shiur Taka says that it's a zeicher to the other years. Zeichel l'shana macher is very good, even though the other years is also me'en the korban pesach. But al kapanim, what we do have a shtickle bedoima is that it's still done in the afternoon. That means even though we don't have the day, it's not Yodalit, it's not Erev Pesach, but the hours is bedoima. It's bein harabayim, it's in the afternoon. Okay. However, there's a different minik, others that make the Erev Pesach matzahs this year, Pesach by night. Leila Seder. The Chassam Sofer was noig like that. It brings his Rabbi did that to make the Erev Pesach matzahs a year like this year to make it Leila Seder. So the shaila is, what shaykhis does it have? B'chalal Leila Seder. Shchitas Korban Pesach was Erev. It's not Erev Pesach, and it's also not the shoy. Especially on Friday, at least it's the afternoon. So you're off by a day, but it's at least b'doime legabi the afternoon. But what's Leila Seder? What's the mile b'chalal? Zokt Rabbi Nachum Zemba, because kacham alayla hoylachachar yoim. So enechanami of lemaisa shchita and even zrika, they had to do with dafka bein arabayim. But b'yesoida, it has a pshat. It has a pshat. Leil HaSeder is connected to Erev Pesach. That's the shaykhs of making Erev Pesach matzahs this year, Leil Pesach by night.
You couldn't do it.
What'd you say?
Because the Maisa, the Josh said you can't do it.
So Lamaisa, Shmuel Rozovsky asks on this Reb Nachum Zemba two things. First of all, he asks Lagabe the Erev Pesach matzahs that Lamaisa, even why do we make Erev Pesach matzahs? Because of the Shchitas Korban Pesach. And like Reb Zevi said, the Shchitas Korban Pesach is klar. The Torah says in Parashas Bais that it's done Yud Daled Bein Arabayim. Seder is a din of kacham alayla hoylachachar yoim, but it's not Yud Daled Bein Arabayim. So it's not the yoim, it's not the shoyes. But then he asks v'chlal on the whole of Nachum Zember, and lechanami v'kacham alayla hoylachachar yoim, but it's still tezvav. The Torah says you have to v'yasu as a posach bein arabayim of Yudalid. The Torah says clearly it's not Yudalid. Halayla hoylachachar yoim doesn't mean that it's still Yudalid. It's tezvav, but however the kachim connects the night afterwards. Good. So that's one nekuda lagabe shchitas Korban Pesach. That's doiche Shabbos. The shchita, the zrika is doiche Shabbos. Then we went off a little bit into Erev Pesach matzahs. Another nekuda to speak about the din of shchitas Korban Pesach, that it's doiche Shabbos. These are huge machlokes achronim. If a zar could shecht a korban in the Beis Hamikdash on Shabbos, shchita zar is kosher. What's about on Shabbos? It's a machlokes achronim. Many achronim lakan, the Rashash, a lot of big discussion. However, we'll get to Pesach Mamash in a second. That's why I'm bringing it in. This is a discussion mitzad atzma. We spoke about it in the morning Kollel when we're learning Masechtas Yuma, Lagabi Yom Kippur. It's a discussion. Every Shabbos could a zar shecht on Shabbos. It's a shmuz for itself. However, this is where it's negeya for us learning, speaking about Korban Pesach that's doiche Shabbos. Leko man de palig, that shchitas Korban Pesach is kosher bezar even b'Shabbos. That means us, whoever's a Yisrael, that if you want to shecht b'Shabbos, this would be an opportunity to shecht b'Shabbos in the Beis Hamikdash, the Korban Pesach. Leko man de palig. Some want to bring a raya that you always could because you see the Korban Pesach. Where do you see by the way from the Korban Pesach that you buy Korban Pesach? The Mishnah says k'maseu b'chol kach maseu b'Shabbos with some chilukim. The Mishnah doesn't say a chiluk. That b'Shabbos a zar can't shech the Korban Pesach. V'oid is a raya that if there's a raya because even if a kohen shechts for us the Korban Pesach he's a shliach, he could only be a shliach if we could shecht, that he could shecht, but al kapanim it's klar that a zar could shecht. What's taka the pshat? Why taka if all over a zar can shecht? Why taka over here would it be different? So I'm just going to say mamash very bekitzer. My grandfather, Matchi de Lubart, he was a Talmud in Chacham Leblin, put out a sefer on Kotcha Melchemes Yehuda. He has a skamas, Rabbi Zalmer, a Baron. He has an arichas gadol to say that zar cannot shecht b'Shabbos only by a korban tzibur. With the whole hezbollah because he has to be kaveh the korban kotchim dik. Al kol ponim by a korban yochid. that a zar ketchecht even on Shabbos l'kula alma, which really this is the only korban that it's negeh. Usually a korban yachid's not doiche Shabbos. Over here, and that's the chiddush, that's what we're discussing tonight, that a korban Pesach, even though it's a korban yachid, it's doiche Shabbos, like we mentioned in the beginning, a drasha. One last nekuda lagabi the korban Pesach, and then we're going to go into the korban chagiga. The question is asked, just like Rabbi made a gzeira, that you don't take lulav on Shabbos, and we spoke about it over here, that you don't read the Megillah on Shabbos, gzeira shema yavirena dal ramas b'shos harabim. Why don't you say the same gzeira that you don't bring a korban Pesach when Erev Pesach is chalias b'Shabbos, gzeira shema yavirena dal ramas b'shos harabim. Shenemol these shilas, you bring it to the Rav to see if there's no mum, shilas and shilas. Why is there no gzeira shema yavirenu? Oh, one teretz, Pasha, that's given as Kahanam's reason. Another teretz, which is also the same teretz, I think we spoke about it even over here, bedoima, to why you don't say Mila, should not be doicha Shabbos, gzeira shema yavirenu. There's many terutzim, but one teretz is given is that if the Torah says mefurish, and Ramosh has a tshuva about it, that a drasha is considered mefurish, just like by Mila, b'yoyim hashmini afilu b'Shabbos, and Mamela, the Torah says clearly even b'Shabbos. Here also, there's a drasha, it's like the Torah says mefurish, that korban Pesach should be brought even b'Shabbos, and it's not doicha. Atkan, lagabe korban Pesach. We should still be zoicha to be able to bring the korban Pesach, this Erev Pesach, and it's doicha Shabbos. The korban chagiga is not doiche Shabbos. That's klar. It's a Mishnah of Furesh Stav Samach Tes. Sagt the Mishnah, Eimesai mevi chagiga imoy. When do you bring the korban chagiga with the korban Pesach? Bezman shehu b'choil. That says when you bring the korban Pesach b'choil, you bring a chagiga. However, if it's b'Shabbos, sagt the Mishnah clearly, Eimevi and ibay chagiga. Agav, the reason you bring a chagiga is so when you eat the korban Pesach, it should be ala soiva. So what happens Shabbos? Where's the ala soiva? So Lamaisa, the Rambam says, it's a discussion for itself. Once gave on the Kollel Boker a whole shiur on the din of ala soiva. Why do you need ala soiva by korban Pesach? But just one mamash, one akuda. The Rambam in Hilchos Korban Pesach, the Rambam says mitzvah min amufcher lechol boser hapesach achila soiv. It's a mitzvah min amufcher. So mitzvah min amufcher is not doiche Shabbos. Al koponim korban chagiga is einoi doiche Shabbos. So really, we could stop right here. We could end this year. It's einoi doiche Shabbos. Pesach that you bring on Shabbos, we have to handle different halachas. Chagiga, it's Eino Doiche Shabbos, so finish, it's Eino Doiche Shabbos. However, we're going to speak about two nekudas.
Friday or Shabbos?
Oh, so Eino Doiche Shabbos, very good. You didn't bring a chagiga. You didn't, what do you mean you're shechted? You did not bring a chagiga. We're talking about chagigas Yodalid. Avadari was always a chagiga of Yom Tif, Shalmei Simcha, Shalmei chagiga that was brought Tezvav. Not Leil Tezvav was brought the next morning on Yom Tif. You didn't bring it. The Mishnah says you didn't bring a chagiga. So if you didn't bring a chagiga, so finished. At kan. However, let's go through. There's a few nekudas over here. Number one, we say Leil SEDER, the bracha at the end of Magid, a tvilo bakosha v'noichal min azvachim and min apsachim. Zok the Machzer Vitri, a Talmud of Rashi, and the Mordche, why? V'noichal men hazvachim is referring to the Chagiga Yodala that you eat before the korban Pesach. Uben apsachim the korban Pesach, that's the order. First you eat the zvachim, the Chagiga, and then afterwards you eat the korban Pesach. Memela, Zok the Marivile, a year like this year, that we do not bring a chagiga. So be'etzem, you shouldn't even say v'noichel min azvachim. We don't bring a chagiga. But he says you switch it around, v'noichel min apsachim min azvachim, and the zvachim is actually referring to the chagigas yomtiv of tezvav. You switch it around. Lamaisa, others are mefakbik the Bagan Avram brings from the Tshuvas Knesses Yecheskel that says no, not to switch it around, because it's really a tefillah bakasha, sitting by the Leila Seder. If we're not zoichi for the Beis Hamikdash, it's a tefillah bakasha that we should be zoicha v'noicha men azvachim u'men apsachim. So even though this year's Erev Pesach Shechali is b'Shabbos, next year it's not. Someone asks, so last year you should have. No? Last year you should have.
We're not davening specifically for this year, davening for the future.
In Kollel, I hear, it's a general tefillah, but the emes is, the tefillah is that we should be zoicha next year in the Beis HaMikdash. When we're zoicha to the Beis HaMikdash, mekadosh al pi ariyah, so in Tafshin Pei Dalid, it was lav dafka that this year would be Erev Pesach Shechali as b'Shabbos. The emes is, there's another nekuda here that we'll get to in a moment. So lamaisa eich shiyeh, if you do switch it around or you don't switch it around, when you're going to be saying the Agah that it says yes, that switch it around, you know at least why it should be switched around, because you don't bring a chagiga. Another nekuda to speak about that comes out, this that we do not bring a chagigas yodalit, zok toisvis. The Leila Seder we have on the Ka'ara, the Mishnah, the Gemara, what we do is we have a Zroya Zeicha for the Korban Pesach, and then we have the Beya Zeicha l'Chagiga. Zok toisvis, ayos this year, we're not bringing a Chagiga. Or there's a lav dafka that you have to put the egg onto the ka'ara. Why should you put it? V'oit, this is not in Tosfot, but other Rishonim say not only that you don't have to put it on, but actually you should bedafka not put it on. Why should you not put it on? Because it's a michshel will come out. What's the michshel? You're sitting Leila Seder and there's no beya. If you're going to keep the beya on, and it's Erev Pesach Shechali es b'Shabbos, you're going to make a mistake that when there's a Beis HaMikdash, you're going to bring a chagiga even on Shabbos. So I just want to pause for a second. I remember this mamish klor being by Rabbi Schlesing and Shabbos Agadol Drasha 4 years ago, and he was handling this in the Chelek Halacha. She says, could you imagine when the Simoni Akara, it's not just a Siman Ba'alma, it's there to mamash remind you, this egg is here because when the Beis HaMikdash was Chaim, Pshat is we brought a Chagiga. If it's not mamash telling you what's there in the Beis HaMikdash Chaim, so there's even a tzad that you're going to make a mistake when there's a Beis HaMikdash to bring a Chagiga because there was the egg on the by the Seder. That's all right. The simonim have to be. But al kapanim zok toisvis, this is a reason that you don't have to put the egg on the table, and not only you don't have to, maybe even you shouldn't. Mi'idach, the Ri argues, and the Ri says like this. The Ri says, first of all, you could keep it on. You could keep it on. You're going to come to make a mistake. First of all, Kahanim's reason, like we just said before, there's no Shami Avirenu. V'oid, Moshe, V'Aaron are going to be there to make sure we don't make any mistakes. So you could keep the egg on the simon on the kano, there's no mistakes. But V'oid, he says, you gar should bedafke yet keep it on. Why? Because if you take it off, then you're showing ki'ilu the simone ha-seder is like real kachim. It's ki'ilu like makdish kachim b'chutz. Yamamish, it's not here this year because there's no chagiga. So Meila Zoktari not to take it off. Another reason he says why not to take it off. Another reason why not to take it off is because if you're not going to have the egg this year, you're going to come to make a mistake next year. You're also not going to have it. Mamish, just to get off topic, Lagabi, the Sreifas Chametz, it's a separate shmuz that you do it this year, Erev Shabbos, regular time, and Mechiras Chametz also. There are stories, Amol, that on a regular year, somebody came to sell us Chametz, Erev Pesach in the afternoon. So the Rav says, what's Pshat? He says, wait a minute, last year, I sold it, an hour before the Zman. And last year was talking Erev Pesach Chal B'Shabbos. I'll upon him, so Tosfos, not to make a mistake, you keep it on. So we have over here Machlokes Rishonim. We have a Machlokes Rishonim. If you keep on the egg this year on the Ka'ara or not. The Rosh brings from Rishonim, the Rimer Leinish and the Rimer Kobil, that say that you have to keep on the Beya. And this is very important, this Shita, because up until now we're saying that there was no Chagiga. Rabbi say, they say that there was a Chagiga. These Rishonim say that there was a Chagiga. There was a Chagiga's Yudalid. It's a Mishnah Mufareshes that there was no Chagiga. The Mishnah says, Einoi ba imoy with the Korban Pesach. You know when you brought the Chagiga, you brought it Yud Gimel. You brought it Erev Shabbos. Erev Shabbos you brought the Chagiga. So before we go on how can you bring the Chagiga then, you brought a Chagiga, so Memela, that's why you should keep the egg on. So Lamaisa is a Machlokes, if you do or you don't. The Pash, it's not brought at Shulchan Aruch, Pashtus Lamaisa, you keep it on. But Al Kaponim, Zokt, the Rosh from the Rishonim, they brought the Chagiga Yud Gimel. If you bring your Yud Gimel, what'd you say? Very good. So they themselves already explain. Moiridik, Yud Gimel, didn't to bring it, the whole vart is to eat it. And when do you eat it? You have to eat it Matzah Pesach, Matzah Shabbos, to say it's Leil HaSeder. So they say like this, the Gemara had a tzad that Pesach should be doimet to shlomim, that you can eat the Korban Pesach l'shnei leilos v'yoyim echad, 2 nights and 1 day, b'doimet to shlomim, which means shlomim is 2 days and 1 night. It's 3 oynes, 2 days 1 night, or 2 nights and 1 day. The Gemara has a tzad that the Korban Pesach should have a night, Leila Seder, in the morning, and Tezayin at night as well also. The Gemara said, Russia we don't. Zogen the Rishonim, Chagiga is bedoimet a Korban Pesach and also has 3 oynes. 3 oynes. Oh, we'll see. I see what's bothering you. It's three. What's the 3 oynes? Friday night. Zogen the Rishonim, Shabbos morning, and Matzah Shabbos. So it's 3 oynes and Mamela. That's the pshat why they brought it Erev Shabbos to eat it, because you have it till Matzah Shabbos and you can eat it together with the Korban Pesach.
Shechter on Friday afternoon.
You shechter on Friday afternoon. Frek the Rosh, you shechter on Friday afternoon. The Korban Pesach, one second. The Korban Pesach, you also shechted Friday afternoon, or whatever Erev Yom Tov, and the Gemara has a tzad that you have night, day, night. So here also, what's your shaila? You shechted the taka Friday afternoon. But they say, bedoimet to the Korban Pesach, the Gemara have a minute, you have night, day, night. So even though it starts, it's not real. Start what? Without the cheshbon, the Korban Pesach, it had the night, the day, and the night. So why can't? But frek the Rosh, it's different. It's different. You know why the Pesach started by night? Because you couldn't eat it before. It's 3 oynes to eat. The Chagiga, you could eat already Erev Pesach. Zogt the Chassam Sofer, Mama's finishing up here. Sorry. Zogt the Chassam Sofer, moiridig in the Welt, to answer this kasha, and he says like this. He says, a chiddush, that because you had to bring the Korban Chagiga in the afternoon, Shitas HaMishnah Lamelech, you brought it in the afternoon, bedoimet the Korban Pesach, so you cheshbon hours. Enochanami Taka was brought Friday afternoon, but it was Dafka Friday afternoon. Taka Friday afternoon, you can eat it already, so that's a half a day, let's call it. Then you have the whole Friday night, the whole Shabbos day, and a half of Matzah Shabbos. That's how they brought the Chagiga Erev Shabbos, and they were able to eat it Leil HaSeder till Chatzos, a half a night. The Chassam Sofer says, la'or this, and with this I'm going to conclude. Zok the Chassam Sofer, he's meyashav a kasha. The month of Nisan, it's a Masechta Sofrim, we don't say Tachnan the whole month. What's Pshat, you don't say Tachnan the whole month? The first 12 days is the Nesian. Yud Dalet is Erev Pesach, is a Yom Tif. Then goes Yom Tif. V'kivan sheyatza roiv, the month without Tachnan, the whole month you don't say Tachnan. What happened to Yud Gimel? What's Yud Gimel? Frek the Chassam Sofer on Shulchan Aruch, and that goes, what happened to Yud Gimel? If you're going to you can't tell me that roiv the month, even not consecutive from the beginning, is enough, because then Tishrei should be like that also. Tishrei, Medina, the Arshit is a Maisa Tishrei also, but the Iker, Tishrei is not, because you don't have straight. You have Rosh Hashanah, you have Erev Yom Kippur, you have Yom Kippur. Most of the month of Tishrei we don't say, but not consecutive from the beginning. Zok the Chassam Sofer that the first year the Kollel Yisrael brought the Korban Pesach, it's this week's parsha. The pasuk says, this week's parsha, Parshas Pekudei, Vayhi b'chodesh harishon b'shana hashein. It's not the year they went out of Mitzrayim, because they went out of Mitzrayim. Pesach was Thursday, but the second year, b'chodesh harishon b'shana hashein. And the Gemara says in Shabbos, Eser Ataris, one was that Rosh Chodesh Nisan was Sunday, like this year. If Rosh Chodesh Nisan is Sunday, means it was Erev Pesach Shechalias B'Shabbos. Zok the Chassam Sofer, if it's Erev Pesach Shechalias B'Shabbos, Kollel Yisrael brought the Korban Chagiga on Yud Gimel. So it was a Yom Tif, and then you don't say Tachnan. But Akopanim Lahachser, Korban Pesach is Doiche Shabbos. Korban Chagiga is not Doiche Shabbos. B'Pashtus, it wasn't brought. However, we see over here that it was brought Erev Shabbos. And just to conclude with a different Chassam Sofer, the Chassam Sofer says that a year that Erev Pesach falls out on Shabbos is a moiridige year, a mesugaldige year. Aleph, the first year that they built the Mishkan was Erev Pesach Shechalias B'Shabbos. The first year they went into Eretz Yisrael was Erev Pesach Shechalias B'Shabbos. Kollel Yisrael, after the Chanukah with the Chashmonoim, that the Chashmonoim Lamaisa were Choyte, we spoke about it over here, after Night Seder, they took away the Malchus Beis David. It was given back to Hillel, because Hillel was a Malchus Beis David, also tracking back to the Geula, was a year, these Rayas, it was a year of the Erev Pesach Shechalias B'Shabbos. Zok the Chassam Sofer, a year that Erev Pesach Shechalias B'Shabbos is a year Mesugel for Geula. We should taka be Zoiche to the Geula Shleima and taka bring the Korban Pesach this year, Erev Pesach, Erev Shabbos.